Hi, scholars. Welcome back. Miss Luna here. Today, we're going to continue reading our story from yesterday, Little Red Riding Hood. Now, yesterday we went over, and the previous other days we've gone over fairy tales. So, Little Red Riding Hood is that's right, it's a fairy tale. So, right now we're going to be doing our fairy tale chant. So, fairy tale chant, get ready, go. Fairy tales are stories that begin with once upon a time and have good and evil characters and have a happy ending. Awesome job, scholars. So yesterday I went over a new characteristic of a fairy tale. Right now I want you guys to think to yourselves about what that new characteristic was. If you remember, go ahead and shout it out. If you don't, that's okay. I'm going to go over it again. That's right. So, another characteristic of a fairy tale is that there's always a problem. It always has a nice job, scholars. Air five. Oh, sorry. So, today we're going to finish reading Little Red Riding Hood. Also, today I'm going to be asking you some questions about, besides the story, about the setting, who the characters are. Yesterday we talked about some problems, how those problems are being resolved, and what the final solution was. So kind of like our story map, just like what we used to do in school with our writing. All right, let's start reading. So, Little Red Riding Hood, continuing on from yesterday. Yesterday we ended at the part where the wolf was trying to trick Little Red Riding Hood so he can go and try to eat the grandma and then eventually eat Little Red Riding Hood. So he had Little Red Riding Hood go pick some flowers for her grandmother. Now let's finish reading and see what happens. The door was unlocked, so the wolf opened it quietly and crept inside. He tiptoed into the grandmother's bedroom and found her asleep in bed. Suddenly, she woke up. When she saw the wolf, she screamed, "Help! Help!" cried Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother. The wolf grabbed her, pushed her into the closet, and locked the door. "Be quiet," he said, "or I'll gobble you up now instead of later." Ooh, kind of scary. The wolf quickly put on a nightgown and a cap. He hopped into bed and pulled the covers up to cover his hairy chin. At that moment, Little Red Riding Hood knocked on the front door. "Grandmother," she called. "Come in, my dear," said the wolf in a high voice. Little Red Riding Hood went into the bedroom. She stared at her grandmother lying in bed. Her grandmother looked very strange, and Little Red Riding Hood was afraid. "Grandmother, what big ears you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "The better to hear you with, my dear," said the wolf. Ooh, scholars, right now we're going to pause really quickly and I'm going to ask you a question. So, right now I want you guys to think to yourselves. You're thinking. Why does Little Red Riding Hood say, "What big ears you have"? Why does Little Red Riding Hood say, "What big ears you have"? Take a couple seconds to think about it. Awesome. So right now, I want you guys to go ahead and shout out your answer. Awesome job, scholars. So yeah, Little Red Riding Hood says, "What big ears you have?" Because she's afraid. We know that because in our story it says, her grandmother looked very strange and Little Red Riding Hood was afraid. Then she says, "Grandmother, what big ears you have." Because she knows that her grandma really doesn't have that big of ears. So she's kind of afraid. That's why she said that. Awesome work, scholars. All right, let's continue reading. Let's see what's going to happen. "Grandmother, what big eyes you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "The better to see you with, my dear," said the wolf. "Grandmother, what big hands you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "The better to hug you with, my dear." "Grandmother, what big teeth you have," said Little Red Riding Hood. "The better to eat you with," cried the wolf. Little Red Riding Hood screamed. This was not her grandmother. It was the wolf. Suddenly, the wolf sprang out of bed. He tried to grab Little Red Riding Hood, but she leaped away, light as a leaf in her cherry red cape. The wolf grabbed the air instead. Ooh. Right now, we're going to pause really quickly, and I'm going to ask you guys another question. So, right now, thinking to yourselves again, what are the actions of the wolf, and why is that important? What are the actions of the wolf, and why is that important? Right now, taking a couple of seconds to think of the answer in your head. Remember, keeping that answer in your head. Awesome. If you have your answer, or if you're almost done completing your answer in your head, just go ahead and shout it out. Yeah. So the actions of the wolf is that he's trying to eat Little Red Riding Hood. We know that because in the story, in the text, it says, "The better to eat you with," cried the wolf. Little Red Riding Hood screamed. This was not her grandmother, it was the wolf. Suddenly, the wolf sprang out of bed. He tried to grab Little Red Riding Hood, but he leaped away, light as a leaf. In her cherry red cape. The wolf grabbed the air instead. So we know that the wolf's actions are that he's trying to eat Little Red Riding Hood right now. And why is that important? Why is that important, scholars? Yeah, that's important because that lets us know that the wolf is still the evil character in our fairy tale story. So that's how we know that we're still reading the fairy tale because he's doing some things that aren't very nice and letting us, reassuring us that he is the evil character in our story. Awesome work, scholars. Say, way to go, us. Awesome. All right, let's finish and see what happens. With a yelp, the wolf tumbled out the window and rolled head over heels down the hill. He was never seen again. Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother pounded on the closet door. Little Red Riding Hood let her out, and they hugged as tightly as they could. "Thank goodness that's over with," said her grandmother. "What happened?" "Mother said you were sick," said Little Red Riding Hood, "so I brought you a picnic lunch, but I left the path to pick flowers." "Well, I think you've learned your lesson," said her grandmother. "I'm just glad we're both safe." Then Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother sat down and enjoyed their visit together. It was the best one they had ever had. The end. All right, scholars. So today we finished reading the story Little Red Riding Hood. And we know that Little Red Riding Hood is that's right, it's a fairy tale. It's fairy tale chant, get ready, go. Fairy tales are stories that begin with once upon a time and have good and evil characters and have a happy ending. Awesome. We also know that fairy tales also have what? They have a, that's right, they always have a problem. They always have a problem. Awesome job. So before we finish today with our lesson, I want to ask you guys another question, just like I have been doing the past couple of days. So using your race response right up here, so restating the question, answering the question, citing your evidence, and explaining your evidence, I want you to answer the question, who are the main characters in the story? Who are the main characters in the story? All right, scholars, so go ahead and try answering that question on your own. I look forward to seeing you guys soon and reading another story. Bye!